Hello, welcome to the very first lecture of basic machine learning. We already talked about what are the type of machine learning in our last lecture, and in this lecture we will totally focus on supervised machine learning. Under supervised machine learning we have two different branches of it. We have regression models of machine learning and we have classification models of supervised machine learning. In regression models of supervised machine learning, the property of this model is that it will predict some real numerical value for us. But in case of classification supervised machine learning models, this will predict some classification of the supplied input which we have. Let me just try to explain the difference between these two models of machine learning. So for example, we have a data set, and this data set is related to a specific customer, and this is a financial data, and this data is telling us what are the expenses of a customer of last 2 years. We have day-to-day expense data of the customer, and by using this historical data, this past data of this customer, we will try to predict what would be the expense of this customer in next month, right? So as we are talking about the prediction of the expense, so this would be somewhat a real value, some amount or something. So when we are talking about the predictions of real amounts or real value, we are actually talking about the regression models of it. And in another case, when we are talking about the models which are actually classifying the input supply data to it, we call them classification models. So the best example for the classification models is the image classification, right? We have different image, and we wanted to classify the new image supplied to the model. So it will classify whether this is a dog or cat or something, right? Depends on the use case which we are working on. So these are the basic two different supervised machine learning model, means regression models and classification model. So in our next couple of minutes of this machine learning lecture, we will try to understand machine learning regression model. Prior to just jumping into the regression machine learning models, I want to try to understand you the characteristics of the data set which we have. So as you can, this is the example data set. As you can see on my screen, we have a data set, and this data set is containing near about 414 rows, right? As you can see, first column was the first row was the name of the column. So we have 414 rows of this data set. Go back to the columns of this data set. So we have first column which is telling about the age of the house. Second column is actually telling us the distance between the house and the nearest metro station, and the third column is telling us what are the number of general stores nearby to this house, and fifth and second one is telling us the latitude and longitude of the data of the house. And the final column is something which we wanted to find out, means this is the final output of these five different component, right? So this is the price of the house per unit area. If we want to use this data set for our machine learning models, so we have a matrix of x, means input data, and we have a column, we have five column which is age, means column A. So we call it first row, first element, right? We have second column which is first row, first second element. We have third column, first row, third element. We have first column, fourth element. We have first column, fifth element, right? Because first column, first element, second element, third element, fourth and fifth. So this would be the matrix of first row. We call it first row x, right? We can say it x1, right? At the same time, we have x2, we have x3. So the whole matrix of this data set would be, the input data set would be something like x11, x12, x13, x15. At the same time, x21, x22, x23, x25. And at the same time, we have x414, 1, x414, 2, and x414, 5, because we have 5 rows. This would be the matrix of the data set we are having, right? So this input matrix is somewhat, the rows of this matrix is 414 multiply 5, because we are having 5 different columns. If we specifically talk about only the only the first row of the column or any row of the column, we call it x, ith row, and this would be x I1, x I2, x I3, right, x I4, x I5. This would be the row of the data, right? And I represent here the number of row, right? Now, as you can see, the specific data point means this input data point xi, ith row, is somewhat multidimensional. It have 5 different dimensions, and because this is having multidimensional, we call it multidimensional data point, right? And generalize, we can say that the xi is a multi-dimensional data point, and x itself, the whole matrix of the data points training data set, is would be somewhat number of rows multiply dimension of the data set, so we call it d, right? And in this specific case, in this case, we have n equals to 414, right? And we have d equals to 5 because input data set is having 5 different rows, 5 different columns. So this was about input data set, means the training data which we will use as an input. This output training data we call t, and this t1 would be the a single column matrix, means for xi, for each xi we have ti, and xi is a multidimensional. As you can see here, xi is multidimensional. We have 5 different dimensions, or generalized form, we have d different dimensions, and for each xi we have ti. So this t matrix of output would be t1, t2, t3, and tn, because we are talking about n different observations or the training data set. So this was about some introduction about the data set, typical data set which we will get every time when we are building some supervised machine learning models. Thank you for watching this video.